Hello, Fantasy Sports owners, and welcome to a new year here on Fantasy Sports News and World Report. I'm your host, Brian Lyles. Today, we're going to be talking about the playoffs. Yeah, even though we missed the wild card weekend, but hey, we still got some, tidbits to let you know about, and also see who our Super Bowl picks are. But before we do that, we got a fantasy sports game update for you to enjoy.
Hello, fantasy owners. I'm Susana Miguel with your fantasy sports game update. Tennis, anyone? Well, thanks to the excitement of last season, the Williams sisters are back in the winner's circle. Rafael Nadal finally outlasting Roger Federer, and some current and newer opponents trying to vie for the top spot. Wouldn't it be cool to have them on your team? Well, unlike Team Tennis, tennis-pool.com is giving you the opportunity to have these stars in your corner. It's a free salary cap game where you must pick 20 tennis players, 10 women and 10 men, within a budget of $15 million. Well, you'll be allowed to trade off 6 players per week and pick 20 new players at these 4 important times of the season. At the beginning of tennis season, that happens in January, between hard court and clay grass season, which happens around April. Between clay grass season and the US Open Series, which happens around July. And between US Open Series and the Race to the Tour Championship, which happens around September. The scoring system is based on each tour's point ranking system. If you would like more information about them, you can log on to the WTA's and the ATP's website. And if your team does very well, you'll be able to win one of 3 grand prizes. In addition, you'll have various weekly prizes for a chance for you to win. So strap on that headband and log on to tennis-pool.com and enjoy that tennis excitement. I'm Susana Miguel, and your fantasy has been updated. See you in the court.
Hi, I'm Fantasy Sports World Girl Robin. There's more Fantasy Sports News and World Report right after this.
Two kings, 2 jacks. Nice hand.
220. We've got a polyp at City Park.
220. We're on it.
You never know when a colon polyp is going to show up.
Into the diaphragm.
Get the polyp early and stop colon cancer before it starts. Don't wait for symptoms. Get the test. Get the polyp.
You hate me because I'm a player.
Get the cure.
Hi, I'm Fantasy Sports World Girl Stephanie, and welcome back to the second half of Fantasy Sports News and World Report.
And welcome back to the Fantasy Sports News and World Report. I'm your host, Brian Lyles. And as you can see here, we got a very unique panel here to talk about the NFL playoffs and this past NFL season. With me is Miss Carol Watson. You saw her probably a couple shows ago, and she was the greatest female sports, fantasy sports woman on the planet right now.
The greatest?
Yeah, because she kicked my butt badly in the fantasy game. Yeah. Our secret source, Langley Wiggins, is back.
Oh, we pop champagne.
And we have the dynamic duo, Mr. Michael Richmond and Ulysses Campbell. Michael Richmond, you can see, actually soon to be seeing with his own television show, which is in development. But you can hear him on ESPN 840 at Charlottesville, Virginia, co-host of the DC Sports Blitz. And Ulysses E. Campbell, the creator, the mastermind of the Fantastic Forum. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to the show. I like to first start with a recap of this past season and look of how some of the players that most of us who played fantasy games, how well they did, how bad they did, and some of the teams as well. I felt this was a very interesting season, especially the last month and a half, because there was just all this lot of emptiness of questions of who will get into the playoffs besides the teams that are now. And I was kind of in the midst of the same thing with my fantasy league because we didn't know until like the last game of the season to see who gets in the playoffs. And sadly, yes, Josh, you won everything, but we'll get to that another time. But I would like to ask, who do you felt, what was the big highlight during this NFL season? Carol, ladies first.
Okay, well, my big highlight was the fact that I had Tom Brady, so my season started off wrong from the beginning. So all the players that I had, there was like some problem. Injury, running back was running back by committee, so it was hard to figure out who was going to actually play and get the ball. But then halfway through the season, I got D'Angelo Williams. He was a beast. And he was available. Nobody else picked him up either. I got him. And it was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Langley, what you felt was good for, granted, I know you don't play fantasy games, but, what do you felt like was the big highlight of this season?
Well, I think the big highlight is just testing players' skills of trading. Once again, injuries always play a big part, and how you juggle your lineup and all. And much like Tom Brady went down, you probably had to search for a quarterback right off the bat if you didn't have a good backup. So I think
no, my backup got injured too. And then one week, both quarterbacks went down. The same week, I had Schaub and Orton. Yeah, and they got injured in the first quarter.
You just had a disease with him. But really, it just comes down to maneuvering your players, juggling your players, being able to trade off and get over these injuries.
Yeah. Mike, how did you see this season? Granted, as a Redskin, it wasn't all that. It was great in the first half, but the second half was down. But any other highlights you felt like was good or bad?
Well, I think the Cardinals quarterback, Kurt Warner, was a major surprise. He threw for more than 4,500 yards, and he had a ton of touchdown passes, and he wasn't even on the roster of a lot of fantasy owners at the beginning of the season. So whoever was able to get him as the season progressed, I mean, you were definitely in a good position. Drew Brees was by far the best fantasy player out there. The guy threw for 5,069 yards, 34 touchdowns, and his yardage total was only 16 behind Dan Marino's all-time NFL record. 34 TDs. He was tied with Phillip Rivers, who was another good player for the, in terms of touchdowns. They were tied for the NFL high. So he was a.
And Jay Cutler had some good numbers too.
Right. Exactly.
Ulysses, let's start into this. Who do you think was your fantasy MVP?
Well, before I answer that, I've got to ask you, what is Langley doing on this show if he doesn't play fantasy sports?
That's why he's the secret source. He's the guy. He's that guy that
I took people to the Super Bowl.
Yes, trust me, he has. He has proof. Trust me.
Right.
So
he's the guy people are supposed to be listening to on the show. Oh, okay, I'm gonna start listening to you now. Because let me tell you something. I had Larry Johnson this season. I had Plaxico Burress this season. I mean, I was in the tank from it was terrible. But no, in terms of highlights, I was seeing a lot more lowlights for me than, I guess highlights, I'd have to look at the performance of the Tennessee Titans. Going undefeated as long as they did, and then, still being the #1 seed in the AFC and all this kind of thing. So, because they certainly came from out of nowhere. Not one of the teams that I would have called at the very beginning of the season.
Okay. Well, let's get back to who do you think is the fantasy MVP?
Well, I kind of wrestled with this a little bit because when I pick a fantasy MVP, ideally it's somebody who played for me. Okay, so, and I had no problem last season because I had Randy Moss, and so that was it. Got him in the 12th round. He's steal, But this season, it was a little tougher. Didn't wind up with Randy Moss on my roster, but I did wind up with Derek Mason. And
pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He only had 5 TDs, but an 80-catch season. And it was, in fact, Joe Flacco made him good again. This guy had been hanging around for these years, and Joe Flacco coming in, all of a sudden, 80-catch season. Hey, what's not to love? Okay. He was one of my better performers.
Mike, who do you think is your fantasy MVP?
Well, I would give it to Drew Brees, but there were a number of other players that had great seasons, one being D'Angelo Williams. Michael Turner on the Falcons. I think that the Chargers are kind of wondering why they gave up on him and not LaDainian Tomlinson. But Adrian Peterson, leading rusher in the NFL. So, but I would put Breeze on top.
Lane, how about you?
Same here. Breeze, either Breeze, Phillip Rivers, or Adrian Peterson, hands down.
Carol.
Well, I have to tell you, D'Angelo Williams. He wasn't on my roster at the beginning, but he turned out to be solid. I could count on him for yardage. I could count on him for touchdowns. And then he had a couple of games where he had 3. So, you know, in some weeks, he gave me enough points to overcome other players who were not giving me anything.
How'd you finish?
3rd.
Not bad.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah,
especially me being dead last, but anyway.
Oh, you were behind me?
Way behind.
And so
I was a footprint for someone else's footprint.
Hey, at least I played.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you were in my league?
Yeah, I was the Marauder.
I think I beat you too.
I'm sure you did.
I was DC Gridiron.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still pulling your foot out of my behind.
Anyway, I'm in full agreement with Drew Brees being the fantasy MVP. You know, over 5,000 yards, 16 yards away from Marino's record. I felt like he had something to work with. He had a good receiving core. Marquise Colston coming back healthy this season was very helpful. Even though Reggie Bush went out during the middle of the year and Deuce McAllister with his situation. But still, Drew Brees produces a very high amount of numbers, and I think a lot of people will probably look at him next year to be drafting as probably the #1 quarterback. But go ahead.
Can I make a real footnote to the Drew Brees story? His lowest single-game yardage total of 216 yards came against the Washington Redskins.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
Well, let's say, granted, we have the highs. Here's the low. Who was the worst fantasy guy you had, Langley?
I think the last time I said Larry Johnson and somebody else, but Steven Jackson, I think I said. So those two didn't have the year that I thought they would have.
Okay. Mike?
I would have to say Brian Westbrook. I don't think he was used properly by the Eagles throughout the year. He was also injury-riddled during the season, so if you had him on your roster early on, then you were in trouble, I think.
Okay. Ulysses?
Unquestionably, hands down, I'm with you, Larry Johnson. I mean, he was I printed out the things, and he's all highly rated, and my turn to pick comes, and I'm like, oh, let's see, Tomlinson's gone? Larry Johnson. And then what do I get? I'm like, good God. Larry Johnson.
Carol?
Anthony Fasano. I couldn't get a tight end for nothing in the world. All my tight ends were busts. And as soon as I dropped him, he scores a touchdown. I pick him back up, nothing.
I kind of in agreement with this type of player. Running back Fred Taylor from the Jaguars. I gave him the benefit of when I drafted him. It's like, okay, he had a 1,000-yard year last year. I think he'll be doing great. They got that nice 1 and 2 combination, which has been now the big main theme now in the NFL. I put him in 1 week, just 30-yard game, 20, 50-yard game. It was just nothing. So I bench him. Next thing, 100-yard game, 2 touchdowns. He's doing great. It's like, okay, put him in next week. 20 yards, 30. And then he gets hurt. And I'm like, forget it. I got to the point where I just dropped him. I felt like his better days are behind him. I really think now that the Jaguars, granted the Jaguars weren't really that great of a team this year, but I still personally felt that, I think his contribution wasn't very helpful. So I think, Fred Taylor, you are the stinker of the year. Thank you.
Did I mention I had Travis Henry and Rudy Johnson at one point too? Moving on.
It was a rough year for you, wasn't it?
Now let's really get into the meat of everything. Let's get into the meat of everything. The Super Bowl picks. Granted, this is you know, I have always had the debate about, you know, my dream versus my reality, but I'll hold that off. And Carol, I think you have some interesting teams to get through the game.
Okay. In my process of elimination, I have Tennessee and Carolina. And I think it's going to be Tennessee.
And how did you come about this?
Okay, because Baltimore is going to beat Tennessee. Pittsburgh is going to beat San Diego, because San Diego, they have a lot of offense, but defense suspect. Pittsburgh is going to take them. So between Pittsburgh and Tennessee, Tennessee.
Wait a minute, didn't you just say Baltimore was going to beat
Tennessee? But she meant Tennessee was going to beat Baltimore.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Because Tennessee's going to win.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just making sure I ain't hear things.
Okay. The Giants are going to beat Philly. Carolina's going to beat Arizona. Arizona just squeaked in. That's a fluke. And between Carolina and the Giants.
Didn't you just say Carolina?
Tennessee?
You said Carolina.
No,
Tennessee.
other side, other conference.
No, you said Carolina against Tennessee in the Super Bowl, right?
Carolina against the Giants.
Oh, you break. Oh no, what I'm saying in the Super Bowl is Tennessee and the Panthers.
Okay, but the Carolina has to beat the Giants before they meet Tennessee.
So,
yeah, but
so
you
you're
just
saying
said
that
the
And
Giants
then Tennessee is going to beat Carolina.
Okay, we got that. All right, we got it. We got it all. Okay, so Tennessee and Carolina. Tennessee's going to win.
Tennessee's going to win.
Okay. Mike, who's going to
sure?
I'm positive. 100%. Remember the Titans. I said that before. I say it again.
Yeah, we remember them by the yard stretch. That's how we remember.
Okay.
Mike, who you got?
From the NFC, I have the Giants. And from the AFC, I have the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
And you want to know how I reached that conclusion?
Because Baltimore is close to Washington.
No, that has nothing to do with it. I was so impressed with the Ravens and how they beat the Dolphins in the opening round playoff game. And the Ravens defense is just so good. Number 2 defense in the league. They have a number of playmakers on that unit. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, who's sort of a hybrid. And in 2000, they had a great defense too, but they didn't have an offense. And they still won the Super Bowl. This year, they have an offense. Flacco, I think, is a really good quarterback, and he's got weapons, one being Derek Mason, Mark Clayton. They have a running game. I think it's number 4 in the league. I think they're going to represent the AFC and beat the Giants in the Super Bowl.
So
I think the Giants will they'll probably just squeak by the Eagles, though, this weekend. But the Eagles could surprise.
So this is a replica of the 2000 Super Bowl.
I think we're going to see the Giants and the Ravens in there again. The Giants have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. If they get their running game going, watch out. That Earth, Wind, and Fire, they ran for more than 300 yards in the Giants' win over Carolina during the regular season. So they get that running game going. Now, I think the Giants have been hurting without Plaxico Burress, though.
Right.
They could do it with the running game.
Okay. Langley.
Well, first of all, Mike, I would agree with that, but every time the Ravens play a good team, a good quality team, they get their butts kicked.
The offense is
I
suspect.
need to
The defense is solid. The offense is suspect.
Well, the defense is much better than the offense, but I'll tell you something about the Steelers-Ravens game during the regular season. I think the Ravens got robbed in that game.
Yeah.
All right, the Ravens came so close to beating the Steelers that night.
They didn't do nothing against the Giants.
That was a tough game for them. That was in New York, and they just got blown out. But but I think the Ravens have arrived, and I like Harbaugh, the coach. He's doing something right to motivate these guys. He's got them on the right track. Listen, I'm not a Ravens fan. There's nothing I like about the Ravens personally, but I'm just trying to be objective.
So if you don't like the Ravens, who you got though?
I didn't say I didn't like the Ravens. But I'm just saying this. To cut to the chase, it's not going to be the 2 top seeds. It's going to be 1 and then probably the 2nd top seeds. Therefore, I'm going to say the Titans and the Panthers. Didn't you say that?
Carolina. Yeah. Yeah.
I know what I'm saying.
We agree.
But I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm saying.
All right, that's okay.
But I'm going to go with the Panthers.
Okay. Yuli, you got. I know
No question about it. It's going to be the Colts and the Falcons. Can I tell you how shocked I was when the Colts got beat? I mean, they were one of those teams I really liked. I was like, oh, they're winning on a winning streak. They got that Peyton Manning doing his thing, you know. It's real rough this season because there's such parity in the league, and I think that there were some dangerous teams that won in the first round. I don't know what the Chargers are likely to do, but I think it was dangerous for them to get by the first round. I'm like, ooh, let's see what happens with this. My guess right now, if you're going to pin me down, I'm going to say Baltimore is going to represent the AFC. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say the Eagles are going to represent the NFC.
Okay. And who will win that?
Go out on another limb.
The Eagles.
Okay. Now, if you was to ask us a round of questioning who's the dark horse, then that's who I would go with.
We'll get to that, actually. We'll get to that.
Bold and daring pick.
Again, I am the lone Raven fan on this panel, and as much as I would like to see my team do the, looks like the way it looks setting up, it looks like the old 2000 run, but I personally feel like for right now, I think that the Chargers is the team that I question about, because with that game against the Steelers, depends on who will be the AFC champion. And I feel if the Steelers win it, they're going to the Super Bowl. And in the NFC, I really think the Giants, I think everyone knows how that team plays. And I think the one team that really can play them match for match and I think can beat them is the Carolina Panthers. Because, Jake Delhomme has been in that situation before and he's finally really regaining himself. So I just feel like it'll be Carolina against the Steelers. And I think we're going to get a nice, good, old-fashioned smash mouth football in the way the Super Bowl should be played. And I'm going to give it to the Panthers. I just think that this is just going to be their time. They just needed one more chance. And all they needed was that one more minute with New England during Super Bowl 38. And now I think they're going to get that extra chance. I think Pittsburgh is a very questionable team. But I just think that they can beat San Diego. If they beat San Diego, no matter if it's Baltimore or Tennessee, they'll probably beat them and get into the Super Bowl, but Pittsburgh and Carolina.
Carolina blue.
I just
and don't say a damn thing about my Tar Heels.
I wanted to go with Carolina, but I decided to make the bold, daring pick. But I just got to throw this out there because there were a number of teams that were talked about a lot at the beginning of the season, one most notably the Dallas Cowboys, who are not in this thing right now. And of course, you can see I'm very happy about that. But, the point I wanted to make is I believe that the Cowboys have the same problem as the Redskins. It starts in the front office. And how many of us sitting here at this panel feel like, all right, let me ask you this. How long ago would Jerry Jones have fired a general manager who's doing the job for him that he is doing?
He would have fired him immediately.
Well, there you go. The man doesn't have the objectivity to be able to try and do the job he's doing. It's the same problem with the Redskins. We got a screwed up front office. Anytime you got a situation where the head coach gets hired and then the owner takes him in and says, "Coach, I'd like you to meet your staff." That is completely.
Wait a minute.
But hold on.
Selected a lot of his assistants, or some of his.
More about the Cowboys. More about the Cowboys.
Hold on now. Granted, once you guys get your own seat, this is what happens when you got too much Redskins here. You get your own show here. But anyway, I want to get to this quickly. The Monkey Wrench team, because that's really key to mess up all our Super Bowl picks. Quickly, Ulysses, who's your Monkey Wrench team?
It would have to be Carolina, because they could mess everything up, go to the Super Bowl, win it all.
Like I said.
Yeah.
Like I said.
Okay, Carol, like you said, who will mess up your Super Bowl pick?
The Ravens and the Eagles. Because Baltimore does have enough defense that they could stifle an offense and actually win, and the Eagles could beat the Giants. And and then go on from there. So those would be the two teams that would mess up the whole equation.
Okay, Mike, who's your Monkey Wrench team?
I think it's going to be the Eagles, and the Eagles may very well beat the Giants this weekend. I think the Eagles will do well and may go to the Super Bowl and win it if their coach Andy Reid doesn't go brain dead. And what I mean by that is if he maintains a balanced attack, if Donovan McNabb is able to throw the ball around to a lot of his receivers, a lot of different receivers like he did in their opening round win over the Vikings, and get Westbrook involved. Okay, so if all of those things come into play, and also the Eagles' defense is just terrific. And finished as the #3 unit in the league. They've got a number of playmakers on that team, like Trent Cole. So I think it's going to be the Eagles.
Langley quickly, or
it would be the Chargers, Eagles. Either one of those two. I think the Eagles have a better chance of going farther. Chargers would really mess some people up, but there's always a chance.
The San Diego Chargers, San Diego Superchargers, I thought they would have a chance to, I'm surprised they even beat the Colts. I really am. I thought they would be better, but Sproles has really filled in for. He was crazy. And likely it kind of shows that Tomlinson has shown his age. Phillip Rivers, I think he's being shown he's a real premier quarterback, and sadly he's not going to the Pro Bowl, but that's another day. But anyway, I'd like to thank you all for this. See how quickly this show goes? Especially when you go on your Redskin rants, but that's all
the thing about the Eagles.
Not yet, because we got to get to the Fantasy Sports World Girl of the Month.
Who is she?
Her name is Keisha Monique. She is a local model.
She got 2 first names.
Yes, she does. And she goes to Howard Community Colleges. That's right. And she's trying to get her nursing degree, but she's been featured in Diamond Magazine, Divine Visions Entertainment, and she calls herself, she wants to represent a real woman. So once you see the picture, you'll see why. So anyway, yes, she's a real woman. Yes, yes. And again, on that note, I'm Brian Lyles here for the Fantasy Sports News and World Report, and I'd like to thank all my panel here, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
To a child, a little of your time can make a lifetime of difference. That's why the Greenville Family Partnership sponsored a hike, because kids with something to do are less likely to do drugs.
Standing right in front of them.
Whether you're a good storyteller or a good listener, you can help. To find out about community drug prevention programs, call toll-free 1-877-KIDS-313.
I can keep a kid off drugs.